Hey, I'm John Cannell, and today on Preppy Kitchen, we're making some fudgy, amazing chocolate crinkle cookies. So let's get started. First off, in a large bowl or the bowl of your stand mixer, we're gonna combine the sugar and cocoa powder. You'll want 1 3/4 cups or 350 grams of granulated sugar. Perfect. Zero your scale out, and now we're gonna add 1 cup or 100 grams of cocoa powder. You could use any kind of cocoa powder, but I recommend using Dutch processed. It's the darker kind, which is fudgier and gives you like a nicer baked good. Normally I'd sift this, but we're gonna add so much liquid that I don't have to worry about lumps. Cocoa powder is so light. Now it's time for 1/2 cup of vegetable oil. You could use any light neutral oil. I've even made this with olive oil, and I've had comments on people who tried it too, and it is still delicious. By the way, if you like my videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. There's 2 new recipes every week. Now grab an electric hand mixer or your stand mixer fitted with a paddle attachment. My scale is done. Let's reset. Pop that bowl on, as well as your paddle attachment. We're gonna beat this on medium speed until it's really well combined. Starting off on low so the cocoa powder doesn't make an explosion. Aside from being well combined, I wanna see a bit of shine. That's gonna let me know that the sugar is starting to dissolve into this mixture. If you want to amp up the chocolate flavor, right now you could add a teaspoon of espresso powder. You will not taste coffee. The chocolate flavor is just going to be amped up. While this mixes up, I'm going to measure out 2 cups of all-purpose flour, or 240 grams. My scale is back to work. This recipe is a must-make, kind of all year round. I love the taste and the texture, but especially during the holidays. It is the quintessential Christmas cookie in my mind. This is all mixed up. We need to have 4 eggs, but I do not want the texture of crunchy eggshells. I'm gonna crack these 4 eggs into a small bowl, just so I can be sure everything's perfect. It's very tempting to just crack the eggs right into your mixer, and honestly, I do it pretty often, but it's a risk. And there's no need to run the risk when you're making a fudgy, delicious cookie. And 4 eggs. I'm gonna give this bowl a scrape down before I go and add the eggs in. This batter looks so rich, it's wild. This cookie has a trade-off. You're gonna get the most incredible fudgy interior with tons of chocolate flavor, but there is no way this can bake unless it sets in the fridge for hours. You really need to chill the batter. Back to medium speed. We're gonna add the eggs in 1 at a time. Crinkle cookies became really popular in the 1950s. They're attributed to Helen Fredel, and there was a molasses crinkle cookie that was in Betty Crocker's Carnival of Cookies cookbook. So word got out. They're super easy to make. It's basically a foolproof cookie recipe. And they come out of the oven fully decorated with this beautiful black and white crackle pattern. Last egg. And at this point, I'm gonna add 2 teaspoons of vanilla for a little extra flavor. If you're in the mood, and maybe because it's the holidays, you could sub the vanilla out for some dark rum or bourbon. Delicious. Or peppermint, or some orange extract. These are all delicious flavors. Okay, just wanna show you the texture of the batter now. It is so glossy and fudgy. You definitely need to scrape the bowl down because the inside is a delicious silky chocolate soup and the outside is still pretty thick. You wanna have the same texture throughout. And by the way, like at this point, you can mix your batter as much as you'd like. Nothing bad will happen. The only time you need to be worried at all is when you add the dry mixture in, because once the flour goes in, that gluten or the protein in the flour will begin to like wake up and say hello with more mixing. And when the gluten is activated, gives you a chewier, breadier, denser cookie, which is not what we want. little bit more mixing after the scrape down. This looks glossy and beautiful. My flour got measured out, but we need to add a couple things to it. To puff things up, I'm gonna add 2 teaspoons of baking powder. 1 and 2. These cookies would be so boring if it was just a sweet note from sugar. We need to have some salt for contrast. Salt will let you taste things. 3/4 of a teaspoon is basically perfect. If you're using fine salt, I would go down to 1/2 teaspoon. If you're using a coarser salt, I would go up to 1 teaspoon. The smaller the salt crystal, the more is fitting into a measuring spoon. Grab a whisk. We're gonna mix this up. Distribute all that baking powder and salt. Because remember, we don't want to mix too much now, so all the dry ingredients should be really well combined before you add them into the wet. Add the flour into your cocoa mixture. I'm gonna mix this on the lowest setting until it is almost combined. Okay. That is almost combined. There is still definitely streaks of flour here. However, I'm gonna finish this off with my spatula. I really think that finishing any recipe by hand is the way to go. You have the most control, you're not gonna lose your concentration and your mind's gonna wander and you wake up and you're like, oh, this got really, really mixed. Small things like using a scale, finishing the batter by hand, and just being kind of more present when you make recipes really makes a difference. Little things add up to a big result. If you're like me and you don't want to be stressed during the holidays, like when it's cookie season, here's the thing. You can make this batter 2 days in advance and just have it hanging out in the fridge. Then you can scoop and bake when you're ready. Or once chilled, you can scoop these out, place on a sheet, freeze solid, pop it into a bag, and these can hang out in the freezer for up to 3 months. Then you just have to thaw in the fridge for 2 hours before you go on to the next steps. You can get these done so far in advance and have on-demand cookies ready. This is beautifully mixed. It's time to cover it up and pop it into the fridge. At least 4 hours. I usually do this overnight or up to 2 days. Towards the end of your chill time, make sure you preheat your oven to 350. You're gonna grab a small triggered scoop, about 1 to 1.5 tablespoons, and about a cup of powdered sugar. You might wanna use more or less, kind of depends. Scoop out your chilled dough. We're gonna give this a roll in our hands, so prepared to have fudgy fingers. And now this gets rolled in our powdered sugar. Try and get some good coverage. Okay, you're gonna repeat this process until you have enough crinkle cookies to satisfy your friends and family. I usually just bake up the whole batch, but you could keep this in the fridge for a few days and continue to bake as needed. I'm placing these about 2 inches apart because they will spread and I don't want them to stick together. You also want some airflow between the cookies when they're baking in the oven so they bake nice and evenly. If you're really taking your time or get distracted, and you come back and notice the powdered sugar is kind of like disappearing or the cookies are sucking it in, you can re-roll them in powdered sugar for a double roll, which I often do actually, or you can just dust some more powdered sugar on top before they go into the oven. This will ensure that you have like really nice coverage so you get that beautiful crackled pattern. These are my husband's favorite cookie because they're so fudgy and soft on the inside. They're almost molten. But the outside is like sweet and kind of crisp. As your powdered sugar gets compacted from all the rolling, I would just use your fingers or a fork to kind of scooch it back around so that the cookies can lift it up. Speaking of which, your cookies will last about a week in an airtight container or up to 2 months if you freeze them. In both cases, you can expect them to look, less crisp on the outside with that pattern, but they'll still be delicious. My chocolate crinkle cookies are ready to go into the oven. 350 for 10 to 12 minutes. The edges will be set and the centers will be puffed. In you go. Once out of the oven, allow your cookies to cool on the baking sheet for a couple minutes, then transfer to a wire rack to cool completely. These guys are done and ready to enjoy. Lachlan, would you like to try a cookie?
Yes.
Let me know what you think.
Best cookie ever.
What was that?
I said it's the best cookie ever.
Mmm. They're basically like molten fudge in the middle. Amazing. They're so good. I hope you get a chance to make these easy cookies, and if you like my recipes, hit that subscribe button and check out my cookie playlist.